All right, it's another week in phonetics. This week is about airstreams and phonations. As usual, this video will review last week, preview this week's material, and note the important dates and stuff for this week. Right, so last week we looked in detail at the anatomy of the vocal tract. We also had a transcription assignment due. Marking's been a bit slow on that, sorry about that. I'm aiming to have it done before this week's tutorial on Tuesday. I also encouraged you last week to get a start on that first lab assignment. It's due the Tuesday we get back from reading week, so the time it will pass faster than any of us really wants. Get a start on that, and please let me know if you have any questions. This week we're going through chapter 6 of the textbook, and in it we learn not only about sounds that aren't found in English, but types of sounds that aren't found in English. And we learn a bit of refinement on some other sounds. So the chapter starts by discussing airstreams, the different ways that we push air around the vocal tract to make speech sounds. In last week's video, when we were talking about anatomy and physiology, I talked about the role of the lungs in pushing air through the vocal tract. That's the pulmonic airstream. But we also have glottalic airflow, where it's the larynx that moves the air around to generate sound, and velaric airflow, where it's an oral mechanism involving velar closure that does it. And we can also distinguish between ingressive and egressive airflows. So in the textbook we learn about pulmonic egressive airflow, that's normal speech. Pulmonic ingressive airflow is pretty much irrelevant to linguistics, it is never used contrastively. Then we learn about glottalic egressives, also known as ejectives, like ah and sa, and glottalic ingressives, also known as implosives, such as ba and la. Then we get a description of velaric ingressives. Those are the clicks, like ah and ah. Okay, so that's the airstreams. The main thing here is learning how they're produced using all that handy anatomy we just covered, and what symbols we use to transcribe them in the IPA. They're quite conveniently found all together in the non-pulmonic consonants table here. Right. So next in the chapter we go over different types of phonation. We're already familiar with two of these, voiceless and voiced. The new ones are whisper, creaky voice, and breathy voice. One thing that I just can't help but point out here is the textbook's use of that diacritic to indicate whisper. It's not part of the official IPA. You will not find it on this chart. But if the textbook is right that whisper is actually used contrastively in some languages, then it's definitely a diacritic that we need. I've linked in the video description to a journal article that you can access through the U of A library, which gets into some more detail about an actual proposal for indicating whisper and some other phonation-related things, as well as its status relative to the main IPA chart of symbols. But that's kind of a digression. I've spent a lot of time looking at whispered speech in my own research, so I couldn't help but I had to pick away at that little bit in the textbook. But anyway, the important things to learn here are how the different phonation modes are produced and what they sound like, and how to transcribe them, the ones that do have official IPA ways of transcribing them. So that's voiced, voiceless, breathy, and creaky voice. You don't have to know how to transcribe whisper for now. It's not an officially settled IPA convention anyway. So next in the chapter, we get into more depth on aspiration, pre-aspiration, and some related stuff. It's great. I really like the description here. It's great to have a clear understanding of what's happening physiologically with aspiration in English and connect that to somewhat more exotic things like the pre-aspiration you get in Cree or Icelandic. I do find that some people have kind of muddled ideas about what aspiration means, and that leads them to do some funny and sometimes not entirely appropriate, sort of not entirely accurate stuff when they're doing transcriptions or other stuff. So this description I think is a really good foundation for that. And I'm also, I don't know, it's maybe just my sense of humor, I'm kind of tickled by the fact that the phenomena of voice onset time and voice offset time, which are kind of paired mirror image of each other, that they have the same abbreviation, VOT. Anyway, and the chapter ends with some concluding remarks about common sounds that kind of ties all of the new stuff in this chapter back to what we've covered in chapters 2 through 4. So that's what you should be learning this week. In terms of things to watch for, the transcription marks, as I said, will be back before the tutorial this week. The second graded quiz is open on Wednesday and only on Wednesday, and it's going to test material from weeks 3 and 4. That's the IPA section and the anatomy and physiology section. Reading break is next week. I will put out a video next week, but there will not be a tutorial. Of course, you're all, as always, welcome to be in touch by email or otherwise. And like I said before, make sure to get going on that first lab assignment. It's worth 15% of your final grade, so do not leave it to the last minute. I've already heard from a couple of people who I know are digging into the assignment, so good for that. And I'm hoping that you've all got a solid start on it by now. And by the end of this week, you should be a good portion of the way through it. Definitely let me know if you have any questions about what's required or what's expected or any of that. Okay? Or even just if you get stuck, let me know. That's it for this video. So I hope to see you at Tuesday's tutorial.